All right, so this is your quick demonstration for what you're going to do to use these supplies for this watercolor and pen project. Like I said before, this project is open-ended. I've given some overviews of what has been done with this project in the past, but this is a project of choices for you. You have to make choices, design choices for this project. What is going to look good? Are you going to do a poem? Are you going to do a pattern? Are you going to do some kind of Zentangles over top? Are you going to use the straw the way that I demonstrate here? So you have a lot of choices for this. This is very open-ended on purpose. All right, so let me go through the supplies. You'll use this later. This is a felt tip pen. Put that to the side over here for now. There is going to be available to you a bamboo brush, very large brush, good for filling in large areas. You'll also have access to normal paintbrushes here, water obviously for watercolor. You'll have a straw that you can use. I'll show you how to use that. I want you to use that in a few minutes. You'll have these watercolors here. Now these watercolors that you used last Friday, they weren't the best. I know that because they're kind of old. I just want to kind of use them up. So if you use something up and the tray is empty, don't throw this case away. You can take the individual paints out, like this one here, and throw them away if they are completely empty. Like this one probably needs to be thrown away here. Those can be thrown away. Those are there. But don't take this plastic piece out and throw it away, and don't throw the case away because I can reuse those and refill those. All right, so and you also have, these are watercolor colored pencil. This one is not. I'm just looking at the thing there. So you see that the pencil, whenever you look at them closer, will say watercolor on them. So they work like a colored pencil, but then you can use water to spread the pigment around like a watercolor. So it's precisely placed and then spread, and they work really nicely. So it's another kind of cool tool for you to use. All right, so here's how I would like you to start the project. Okay, so you're going to have a wrap straw. I've already unwrapped mine here for use. So what I want you to do is, I'll get a little bit of watercolor here, get some orange going, get a pretty good amount. So I'm going to just put a blob of orange over here. I'm going to add some water to it. So I have a blob of water color sitting on my paper. Okay, and before it soaks in, I'm going to take my straw, I'm going to blow it around on the paper and make these little legs. You see how it kind of spread out a little bit there. And I can take my brush and brush that watercolor back through there if it's not exactly, if it's pooling at the ends, so that I have these cool little splotches like that. So there's an orange one that I might use. Let's see, what other colors do I have here? I'll use this violet. I like violet. And those of you that don't really understand how watercolor works, it's really simple. You just put a little bit of water inside the pigment that you want to use, and then you pick it up with your brush and you can transfer it over. Okay, so there's really not a lot of skill and finesse required for this type of watercolor painting. All you really have to do is get the blob of color and put it on your paper. And I'll blow this around. Okay, so the more little legs you get, the cooler it's going to look on your paper, and you can spend a class period or two layering up paint, letting it dry, and trying to get the right mix of different colors on there. I would suggest when you do this, don't go crazy and do all the colors of the rainbow. Okay, pick a color scheme, pick a color set. We talked about complementary colors. We talked about triads, all this stuff we learned about. So I didn't teach you that, had to go through that book for no reason. I want you to use that information to make decisions and choices on your project here. Okay, so sometimes less is more, sometimes more is more. You have to experiment and decide. You do have two sides to your paper, and this watercolor paper you're using is fairly thick. Okay, so this is the start of what we're going to do. Let me show you how these watercolor pencils work also, so you can see how they work. I'll use this pinkish color. So the watercolor pencil works a lot like the watercolor. You have to color directly on your paper. So I'm going to just put a big splotch of color here. And then I'm going to take my water and I'm going to mix up the pigment on the paper. And it's going to start to dissolve that pencil. And you're going to have to kind of maybe scrub the paint off a little bit. Okay, so now you see I have a nice little spot of pigment where that dot was. And then I can take my straw and blow it around as well, same way. Okay, so if you want to do more like painting techniques, you can do a little bit of that, but the main way I want you to use the watercolor is using the straw and using the pigment to blow it around on your paper. Okay, so a little bit of brush work is okay, but I'm going to go ahead and say no brush work. Okay, the only reason you should be using the brush is to put the pigment on the paper, and then the straw should be the way that you're blowing the paint around on the paper. I think that we're going to stick with that for this. So that's one requirement we're going to have, and then the drawing, the design part will come in with your ink over top of that. Okay, so we'll do another demonstration for the second part after this dries and you've had a chance to do yours.